Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. Now, I'm going to start this video by saying that I might ruffle some feathers, I might offend some people, and I'm sorry. I'm going to be sort of attacking a horror icon, and I'm not even really sure what to call this video yet. I'm hoping I'll figure it out by the time it comes to upload. But I want to talk about Friday the 13th, and specifically Jason as a character. Now, I will start with, I love the Friday the 13th series. I love Jason Voorhees as a character. I love the hockey mask with the machete slasher. I mean, if you guys have been watching my channel for any period of time, you know I am a slasher girl. So Jason is one of the icons, obviously. He's a face that is widely recognized. But the story behind Jason is so mixed and bland to me. I feel like there was a missed opportunity with this franchise. Now, for any of you who don't already know, the original Friday the 13th movie came out in 1980. It came out soon after the Halloween film, and it was really just a cash grab because of how successful Halloween was with Michael Myers. Sean Cunningham and Victor Miller, who are the director and writer of this movie, went into it thinking, let's just make a quick buck with an easy slasher horror film. And Victor Miller, who wrote the screenplay, wrote it in 2 weeks, and basically all they had was the name of the movie, Friday the 13th, which Sean Cunningham had already was like, that's gonna be the name. And Victor Miller was just trying to think of just a scary scenario to find a bunch of teenagers, and his thought process was, there's a campground, a kid dies, and a mother goes crazy because of it. That was his whole storyline. They knew that they wanted to do sort of a crazed mother killer, and they just sort of built the story around that. If you've watched the first Friday the 13th, you know Jason doesn't exist as a character like we see him today. He is a small child in this film who drowns after his camp counselors aren't looking after him. He had some disabilities, so he was supposed to be constantly watched, and he just wasn't. And when the camp counselors went off to have a little fun together, Jason drowned, and his mother, just being so distraught at the just irresponsibility of the camp counselors, ends up stalking the camp and killing the counselors to try to get the camp shut down. It's basically like a mother's grief for revenge kind of story, and we don't even see Jason's mom until the very, very end, whenever she reveals that she's the one that's been killing everybody because she's avenging her son. And other than a few flashbacks that we see whenever Pamela Voorhees is explaining to Alice, the main character, why she's doing what she's doing, Jason, we see him as a small child, but we do see him at the very, very end in person at the iconic boat scene that happens whenever the cops come to rescue Alice from the campground, although that is considered to be a dream considering the fact that none of the police officers even saw Jason attack her whenever she was in that boat. So it is solidified for sure that Jason is a small child who drowned, he is dead, he is done with in the first movie. His mom was the one attacking everybody. Jason really wasn't meant to be the main focus. It was really supposed to be more about Pamela because they wanted that motherly figure to be sort of the creepy bad guy in the film. And after the success of the first film, Sean Cunningham, the director, was approached about making a sequel. And he said, absolutely not. There is no point for a sequel. It's stupid to bring Jason back. He's dead. I don't know what you mean you're going to bring him back for. And Sean Cunningham, although now realizes, yes, Jason it was a good decision. He's an iconic character. I mean, he's plastered throughout horror, movies, icons, imageries, anything. When you talk horror, that hockey mask shows up in your brain. There's just no going around it. But for sure, Sean Cunningham, Betsy Miller, who played Pamela Voorhees, and Tom Savini, who was a special effects makeup artist, came out saying that they thought it was stupid to have Jason come back, especially for him to come back and be alive. They all agree that if Jason was just alive the whole time, why didn't he tell his mom that? Why did he just let her go around murdering a bunch of camp counselors? Even Tom Savini makes a joke of like, so was there just some random kid eating like raw fish out of the lake for 35 years and no one said anything? The story behind Jason just does not make sense. And don't get me wrong, Friday the 13th Part 2 is a great movie, and honestly, it's debated between that and the first one of which one is better. Jason's character is so creepy and so well done in that film, but he is a full-grown man in Friday the 13th Part 2. And from the time he drowned to the time of Friday the 13th Part 2 had been over 30 years. So he definitely is a full-grown man. And if he didn't actually die in the first film, that means a full-grown man was just hiding in the woods watching his mom just be so distraught with grief as she was killing people. And the second movie, it starts with Alice's character, who is the girl who gets drugged down from the boat at the very end scene of the first one. She's the sole survivor. She ends up getting attacked by Jason. We don't know this at the time, but it's Jason. The full-grown person man, Jason, attacks and kills Alice. And that scene only took place 2 months after the ending of the first movie. So in the first movie, Jason dies as a child, confirmed by visually seeing him as a child that's dead. And then in the second movie, 2 months later, he's a full-grown man. That is just sloppy storytelling. It doesn't make sense, and it's kind of just stupid. And then 5 years later is whenever the other camp that's like on the other side of the lake gets opened up, and Jason, again, continues to keep killing as a full-grown person. So to look at Friday the 13th Part 1 and Part 2 as a continuing series, it's difficult, especially if you watch them back to back. It's like, what the fuck am I watching? It's sloppy storytelling, and it's not trying to make a sequel that makes sense. Sean Cunningham and Victor Miller both did not want to work on the Part 2 project. They both agreed that Friday the 13th was supposed to be a one-and-done film. Sean Cunningham, similar to John Carpenter, had actually had the idea of making the Friday the 13th series an analogy series, which would be every year he'd release a new Friday the 13th film with the same name, Friday the 13th, but a different story behind it. We talked about that a little bit when I reviewed the Halloween 3 Season of the Witch movie, because John Carpenter wanted the Halloween series to be every year he releases a new Halloween movie, and every year it's a different story, different characters, but still a scary movie that is set on Halloween. That's what Sean Cunningham wanted to do with this movie, but because of the immense success of the first one, the sequel was just inevitable, and they wanted to keep the storyline going. Obviously, there was no storyline supposed to be kept going, but they just sort of ignored that. And Victor Miller, the writer himself, even says he thinks Pamela Voorhees was much scarier than Jason because she's a real person. Because Jason Voorhees is just some sort of being that exists, it's almost like he's a supernatural thing versus being a real person just stricken with grief and just anger going around killing people. And even Betsy Palmer, if you were to go up and ask her about Jason, she would tell you, I don't know who the man in the hockey mask is, that's not my son. She agrees that it doesn't make sense to have him come back as a full-grown adult. A lot of people from the original cast and crew don't see the Jason Voorhees we know and love today as the same Jason that drowned in that lake, mainly because it's not. But whatever. And this movie is one of those ones that you can very much tell it wasn't meant to have a sequel. Sean Cunningham and Victor Miller openly have said that this was a cash grab, bouncing off of the Halloween movies, just trying to make a quick buck. Even Betsy Palmer says she wouldn't have taken the film if she didn't need to buy a new car at the time. It was really just something that they were going to do for a little while, make some money, and then just be done with. No one expected it to be as big as it was. It got a lot of mixed reviews when it came out about whether or not it was a good horror movie, especially because of the success of the Halloween film. It was very obvious what they were doing with this one. But the movie was successful, especially with that sort of hidden surprise at the end that it was Jason's mom doing the killing the whole time. You almost expect it to be sort of like a vengeful spirit, or even one of the locals who was dubbed like the town crazy. You expect maybe it to be him. So there is a surprise at the end, seeing that it is just a distraught mother going around and doing these killings. But she is decapitated at the end of the movie, sort of nixing the ability to continue the storyline. And if I'm being completely honest, I personally think the Jason we see at the very end, the younger one that's sort of like zombie-like and super gross from being in the water, I think he's creepier than the hockey mask wearing machete wielding madman that we know now. I'm not sure the logistics of what it would take to have Jason as the kid go around killing people, but I think it could be a cool idea to have his spirit was kind of sort of living in the lake, and after watching his mother get decapitated, the just vengeful spirit of Jason sort of emerges, and this zombie ghost kid haunts the campground. I think that could have been a fun, cool approach. The kid would have been super creepy to do, and they still would have been able to sort of focus around the Camp Crystal Lake. It could be, years and years later they reopened it, and crazy paranormal stuff starts to happen. I think there was a lot of potential to build off of what they did in the first one and still make successful sequels. Obviously, what I think doesn't really matter, considering the fact that this film franchise has made millions and millions of dollars, and it's super successful, and again, one of the most iconic horror people that there is out there. But I can't help, every time I watch these movies, wonder just what it would have been like if they had taken a different approach. Cunningham and Miller didn't even have anything to do with the writing or directing of any of the sequels. To them, it was really just a one-and-done project that wasn't meant to be this mass-produced thing that it became. They both agree that this is a popcorn movie. It's not meant to have super emotional arcs or a super in-depth story. It's just meant to scare you, to be an enjoyable movie to watch, and to just sit down and chill with some friends and eat popcorn while you watch it. And I think that's something we see a lot, especially with older horror movies, is they were almost like one-and-done sort of situations that just blew up beyond what the directors and writers and producers had ever thought. We see that with the Halloween series. Michael Myers was not supposed to come back. We see that with this movie, of course. We see that with movies like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, even newer movies that we've discussed, sort of like Wrong Turn, or films that were very successful by themselves and didn't necessarily need sequels. And obviously, there are people who are going to prefer the sequels over the original, and some people who think the sequels are all just even worse than the original. So it's really up to your opinion and what you enjoy. Personally, the first 3 of the Friday the 13th are my favorites in the series. I do like what they did with the Jason character. I do find them fun movies. They're scary, they've got good gore, but you do have to sort of just ignore the storyline for a little bit, which can be hard for me. I like to take movies not necessarily at face value, but I like to enjoy the stories as though they're real events that happened. And when you start getting into this sort of choppy timeline and inconsistencies, it makes the story less fun for me, and that makes the movies themselves less fun, because to me, I know what I'm watching is a movie. I know it's fake, which is why I do enjoy plots that have just a believability to them. So whenever we hit this point of being further detached from reality in a plot that makes sense, it does make the movies a little bit less enjoyable for me. I get that unexpected success happens and you want to keep building and riding off of that wave. I just don't like how irresponsible they were with this story. And it's crazy to me that such an iconic horror character has such a bizarre and not even really real backstory. So I'm not making this video with the intention of bashing the Friday the 13th franchise. I love it. They will get all of my money forever. I'm always going to buy Jason merch. I have tons of Jason stuff around my house. I've got cups, shirts, even magnets on my car with his hockey mask on it. But I feel like that also gives me a little bit of the ability to talk some shit, because the storyline just doesn't make sense, and it's very obvious it doesn't make sense, and something that you have to just sort of get over as a fan. And I'm willing to get over it, but not before we talked about it, because it is something that's just so blatantly a huge plot hole in this whole entire franchise. And in some of the bonus stuff that they do have on the DVD, there is a mockumentary crew that goes around sort of documenting the history of Camp Crystal Lake and what happened there. And even they make a sly joke in that documentary series where they talk about how it doesn't make sense that he drowned as a child but then is now alive and well as a grown adult, killing people. So it's something that they're willing to acknowledge, which I do appreciate that. It's better when they acknowledge their inconsistencies versus just acting like everything's okay. But I definitely think there was a missed opportunity with the zombie water Jason, that kid that could have existed. I think he would have been a fun character, and I do wish they would have tried a little bit more with that, but I also love the Jason that we have today. And Pamela Voorhees was a great character for the first film. If they hadn't killed her off, I think it could have been really fun to see what they would have done with her character, because she is creepy and great at what she did. Even though Betsy Palmer only took the gig to buy herself a new car, I'm glad she did, because I think she made the perfect Jason's mom. Which, if you guys are interested, the band Ice Nine Kills did a cover of Stacy's mom, but redubbed it Jason's mom, where they talk about her at Camp Crystal Lake. I'll leave a link down below for that. It's a great music video if you guys want to check that out. But yeah, I just wanted to sit down and rant about that movie for a little bit. It's something that I talk about with my dad all the time, because we both agree this inconsistency is just so aggravating to get over. But I do still love the movies, and will always love the movies, even with the inconsistencies. What do you guys think about the Friday the 13th series? Do you think the zombie water Jason kid could have been a really good idea, or are you happy with how they are and don't think they should have been changed? I'd love to know what you guys think. You can leave a comment down below or head over to my Instagram, What a Horror. I'll be making a post about this video as well. But as always, I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you want to see new videos, because I put out new videos every Friday. And until next time, stay spooky.